All right. Are we prepared to receive the word of God today? Couple of weeks back, I had to read a book. It's about 70 great Christians. And I came across this story about a lady named Gladys Aylward. All right. But before we go into that story, I wanted to ask you a question. Like, many of you sitting here would have had an encounter with Jesus, right? And we have made some decisions after we encountered Jesus. But the proof of those decisions depends upon the choices that we make in a day-to-day life, right? We can do all the promises start of the year. When we met Jesus, we had made multiple promises. The question is, do we still remember those promises? Do we still hold on to it and take our day-to-day decisions based on those promises? Here is one person who took one major decision to follow and to serve the Lord, and she proved it with her life. And that is Gladys Aylward. She's called the small woman with the great God. So today we wanted to discuss and understand the story about who this person is and what she did for Christ. All right? Okay. All right. So before I start, I want to confess that I did take a lot of material from many books, but I also copied a lot of information from one of the messages by one of her sisters named Sarah Cherian. So I do want to give the credit to her because it was very comprehensive. So I did copy a lot of stuff from her message, but whatever said and done, it was very inspiring story. So I just wanted to share that with our church too, so that we can be blessed through the story of this missionary. So Gladys was born in February 24, 1902 in Edmonton, North London, to Thomas John and Rosina Florence. Thomas was a postman, and she comes from a working class family from London. And at the age of 14, she decided to quit school and start working as a housemaid. She's the oldest in the family. She's got a younger sister and a brother, and she loved dancing. So morning she would go for work, and evening she will go for her dance classes or dance gatherings with her cousins and friends. This is her life. Okay, at the age of 18, okay. All right. At the age of 18, one day she finished her work and she started going for the dance classes. She is quite short, okay, and she's got a dark eyes. And she was going, and it was a very crowded place because of her height, and the crowd was too much. She lost herself in the crowd, and her friends had gone in a different direction. She's tried to find her friends, but she couldn't find it. So the crowd was actually going towards one place, right? And eventually she landed up in a church hall, all right? And that time there was a revival meeting that is happening in that church. So the first time she heard that Jesus died for her and for her sins. And that changed her completely. She had a very deeper impact of what Christ has done for her life. And that's when she started to surrender herself to the idea that Jesus died for me. And she completely changed all her priorities, and God became her topmost priority for her. And that's the start of the story that happened, right? And she also came to the, thank you. She also came to know that she can serve the Lord with her life. So from that time onwards, she started getting connected with many Bible study groups, many Christian groups, rather than focusing on dancing. Now she started focusing on God and the Word of God, right? So that's when the transformation happened. So one day when she was there in the church, she got a pamphlet. The pamphlet speaks about China. In the pamphlet, it says there's a millions of people have not heard about Christ at all. This created a great burden for her, and she wanted to do something for China. At the age of 18, she became a rescue sister where she would go and speak to people who have made wrong choices, who are in depression, who have suicidal thoughts, who are born and brought up into prostitution, and who have made wrong choices in their life. And she would go and speak to them, give them hope, and share the gospel. At the age of 18, she started doing it. Then, when she thought about this China situation where people have not heard about Jesus and not heard the gospel, she thought she's not qualified to do this because she's not educated. She does not have a theological background. She doesn't have any missionary training. So she went and spoke to a lot of her friends and relatives and many of the educated class of people like doctors, engineers, government officials, nurses, asking them, would you like to be a missionary for China? So some people thought she's going mad. Some people thought it's not possible. Some people rejected the idea. But she was trying to speak to people time and again that would you like to go to China as a missionary? She even said, I would support with whatever money I have, I will give it to you. Why don't you go? Because you're all educated people. Why don't you go and do missionary work in China? But nobody accepted. The last target was her brother. So one day he came home. They both had a chat in the kitchen. And she cornered him and said, Lawrence, I want you to go to China and be a missionary. This guy is like, what are you talking? And I am nowhere connected to this church stuff, so I'm not going in. So somehow after a long argument, he came out and finally he said, if you want to go, why don't you go? Right? If you want to do something for China, why don't you go? Why are you pushing everybody? Right? So that's when she stood in the kitchen for hours together, thinking and praying. And she made these two important decisions in her life. She said, Lord, if you open the door for me to go to China, I will go. She made that decision. The second thing she said, I will never ask anybody else. Whatever you ask me to do, I will do it. I will never go ask anybody else. She made these two promises to God, a strong decision, and she followed it. All right? From that day onwards, China was in her mind. She had a great burden for China, and she wanted to go to China, whatever said and done. So, she continued her work as a housemaid, and she started saving money. And after she saved money, she went to a place called China Inland Mission. All right? This is a mission started by Hudson Taylor in London, and they preach and teach and prepare people as missionaries and send them to China to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. All right? So this was there. So knowing this, she saved all the money. Whatever money she had, she went and enrolled herself as a probationer in that place and started preparing herself as a missionary to go to China. She spent 1 year in that college. End of the year, the team in that China Inland Mission, said you are not qualified. You couldn't learn the dialect of China. I don't think so you will do a good job as a missionary in China. So continuing study will be wastage of money for us, and time for yourself. So I think it's time for you to go. So they rejected her and sent her out. And she was utterly disappointed. And she had great brokenness for this. The director of the mission saw her brokenness and said, I understand what you're going through. We can't help you further on this, but why don't you go and serve a missionary family who's residing in London? So she went there, served that family, and that couple who were there, they prayed for her and said, if the Lord is willing to God is willing to send you to China, it will happen. No matter who accepts you, who rejects you, don't worry. We will continue to pray for you. So with this, Gladys also started praying. And she said, Lord, open the door for me and I will go. So one day she was there sitting in the church. Two women sitting beside her, they were talking to each other, saying there is an invite from China from Mrs. Jenny Lawson. Said she's in Yangcheng in China and she wanted a young lady to come and support her in her ministry. That's the invite. So they were just talking behind. Immediately, Gladys thought this is a call from God. She turned, got the contacts of Jenny Lawson, and she wrote a letter to her saying, I am willing to come. Would you like to take me? So after some days, she received a response from Jenny Lawson saying, I am happy to have you. But only thing is, I can't sponsor your travel. But if you come here with the little money that I have, I can support you and we can do ministry together. She was so happy to have this. Directly, she went to a travel agent. She asked, how much does it cost to go to China? Two options. One is 90 pounds if you go through ship. 47 pounds if you go via train. So obviously she chose the least cost, that is 47 pounds by train. So from that day onwards, she started saving money for this trip. She sold whatever she had which she considered precious. Even to the point that she sold her shoes, which she thought it's an expensive shoe. She sold it and she took back, bought a very poor quality shoe so that she can save that money to go to China. With many people's help, many financial help flowed in, and she got that 47 pounds for a one-way ticket. She had no hope of coming back, don't know what will happen. Whatever she had, she said, this is what I have, Lord, I'm going to China. All right? And she started her journey to China with some clothes, one Bible, and herself. She took the train. All right? If you see the amount of travel that she has to take is this. She literally have to cross 3 continents. All right? So like Europe, Russia, and then go to China. It's about 5,000 miles. All right? And you're traveling in train. That's the type of journey that she's willing to take for Christ. Now, she started the train. Everything was going fine. She had a little bit of food, whatever she could manage, she gathered. Every hour the train moved, she felt, I am 1 hour closer to China. Every mile that crossed, she said, 1 mile closer to China. She was excited. She went until everything was fine, until she reached Russia. When she reached Russia, there are a lot of soldiers on boarded the train. Okay? A lot of soldiers. Then she came to know that there is war situation between China and Russia. So the soldiers kept on onboarding the train at every station. And then at one point of time, she found out she's the only lady in the train and rest are all soldiers. So after some time, the soldiers told her, you need to offboard from this train because eventually we are getting into a war situation and you will be killed. So you better save your life, get down. She said, no, God has asked me to go to China. I will go to China. She didn't listen. Another problem is, She's English, these guys are Russian. Language problem, she's not able to understand. Finally, the train stopped at one place and never moved. Because of the war situation, all the trains are stopped and she's stuck there. Then the soldiers came and told, this is the situation. Somehow they managed to communicate to her and say, please step down. Then she asked, how am I supposed to reach China? So then they said, you need to walk backwards to a particular destination, and from there you will be able to take a ship. Then you can go to China. So she started walking back. Now the situation is, it is in the central part of Siberia. It's one of the most coldest places in the world, and she's carrying a little bit of clothes, and she's going with that. In the coldest night, she walked 1.5 days to reach that place. In the night, she heard sounds of dogs, and after some time, she came to know these are wolves. All right? With all the risk, she went and reached that place after walking 1.5 days in the coldest place in the world. Finished. Once she reached that place, she fainted because she was so tired and exhausted. She woke up, she had a surprise of her life. She found herself arrested by the Russian army. One of the guys, the soldiers, picked up her passport, opened it, and it was written Missionary. This is a British passport, right? It's written as Missionary. These guys didn't know what English is. So somehow they matched it. The closest they could come is machinery. So they thought this lady is a factory worker. So they arrested her and thought she will be able to help their factory and she will be able to be a worker in their factory. So she was arrested and they put her in a room. And she started praying, Lord, I'm supposed to go to China, not get stuck in Russia. Please help. After she prayed, there was a knock on the door. And the knock on the door, she opened it. There was a young lady standing there and said, you need to escape from this place. Otherwise, you will get stuck and one day you will die here. So she said, how am I supposed to escape? She said, don't worry. I will come and wake you up in midnight and I will lead you out of this place. So she couldn't sleep. She was sitting there praying and praying. That's the only thing she knew what to do. So after midnight, maybe in the early mornings, there was a knock on the door. There was an old man who was there at the door and said, why don't you come? She trusted that person, went. After some time, she saw that young girl also standing for her. They both led her to a port where a ship is going to take off to Japan. And they took her there. She was about to board the ship. The Russian soldiers caught her. The only thing she had is, there is a £1 note she had. She just gave it to the soldiers, and the soldiers took that £1 note and then let her go. And she boarded the ship to Japan. The moment she boarded, there was another surprise. The captain said, you will be my prisoner. She was like, God, what's happening? But the captain said, that's the only way I can take you from Russia to Japan. So with that assurance, she went there and landed in Japan. From Japan, she took another ship to mainland China. And there, she took another train to go to another place in China. From there, she took another trip via mule. All right, stinky Atis. She went there and finally reached another place. From there, another foot journey and finally reached Yangcheng. Now, this is the journey she took. How many of you would even think about doing this for Christ? Imagine she's just 27, 28 years old. In the prime of her youth, she has taken all the risk just to preach the gospel, to go to China. All right, so that's where it is. And she finished it. Finally, after a 3-month journey, she met Jenny Lawson. Okay, the surprising thing is, After she went there, she was malnutrition, and Jenny Lawson gave her all the food. She was okay. After she was good, she started serving the place. She understood that the thought process between Jenny Lawson and Gladys were miles apart. They both had a lot of difference of opinion. If at all these two ladies would have had a chat in London, Gladys would never had gone to China. But now that she's gone here, she started praying, Lord, do something. And the Lord gave her wisdom and said, why don't you surrender to the authority of Jenny Lawson? So she learned to submit herself to Jenny Lawson and started serving. Now, the situation in China was influenced by Boxer's revolution, which means the Chinese never liked these foreigners, and they in 1900s they chased all these people out of the country, and most of them were killed, especially the missionaries. So they didn't have much of a choice. They were staying in Yangchen. Yangchen had never seen foreigners. So when they saw these Jenny Lawson and Gladys, they thought these are white devils. That's how they treated. So the question came to Gladys and Mrs. Lawson, how am I going to preach the gospel to these people in this scenario? So they were praying about it. Now God gave an idea for Jenny Lawson that she should open an inn. Inn is like a motel or a hotel where people stay overnight and move on. Now when she discussed with Gladys, Gladys told, I didn't come here to work in an inn all the way from London, risking all my life, and I reached here. Should I be working in an inn? Then again she prayed, and God gave her the wisdom and said, if this is what you want me to do, Lord, I will do it. So they opened an inn, and the inn's name is Inn of Eight Happiness. Okay, so they started this. The reason why they started is Yangchen is a place where a lot of the traders who carry a lot of goods in the mule would pass through this place, but overnight they will stay here because it was a long journey, about 3 weeks, sometimes 3 months they would go. But when they come back or when they go, they have to stay in a place, and this is the place they commonly stayed, and they had to rest. So these ladies are termed as white devils, so nobody came. So they didn't want to stay with these white devils. But eventually they understood the food and the stay and accommodation was in a very, very nominal price. So they didn't have a choice. They started using this inn. But apart from food and stay, Chinese loved entertainment. The only entertainment Jenny Lawson could give is storytelling. So she would give them food, and before they sleep, she would tell stories from the Bible. She would preach the gospel. She would tell the love of Christ to these people. So they would happily listen to these stories because they loved these stories. So batch by batch, she used to preach every day. And Gladys saw how she did this, and by this time, she also learned the dialect of that local language. So this went on for a year, and many people heard the story of Christ, and they gave their lives to Christ and became believers. And many had changed their lives hearing these stories. So it was very, very fruit-bearing initiative they have taken. So things went on well about a year. And by this time, Gladys was about 29 years old, and Jenny Lawson was 79. Okay, so Jenny Lawson thought, we have done working a lot of people and sharing the gospel here. She would like to move on to another place, establish another inn, okay, so that she will be able to preach the gospel to other villages. So she left Gladys and moved to another place. Eventually, a news came that Jenny Lawson had a great fall from the first floor and became fatal, and she died. This is just 1 year after Gladys moved to China. Now she's left all alone. It's a test of time. So, this is the photo of Gladys, and this is the coffin of Jenny Lawson. And these are all the people whom they had preached the gospel and who have been faithful to these two women for all that they have done. All right, these are the mulattoes and some of the people who have heard the stories of Christ, who have converted themselves as believers, and they have been faithful at this time. So they moved on. Gladys didn't know what to do. She continued to serve in the inn, and her life was in a question mark, and she started praying to God, Lord, what should I do? I have no support. I have nobody other than you. Tell me what to do. After continuous days of praying, she received an invite from the Chinese government. And there was a person with an official title as Mandarin had sent this request. So the Mandarin sent a couple of requests. She thought, what am I to do with the government request? I have no connection with the government, so she refused these invites. And then the Mandarin himself came to a place one day and said, I am the Mandarin who gave you the invite, but I'm coming here. So she said, okay, what is that you want from me? Do you know the Chinese government has banned the binding of feet? She had no clue what this is. And she said, what am I supposed to do with this? So she was, in her mind, she was thinking, I didn't come here to serve the government, but I came here to serve the Lord. So she prayed about it and said, Lord, if it is your will, I will do this. So these are all unconventional things, not related to anything of her ministry. So finally she prayed and said, what is that you want me to do? The Mandarin said, this binding of feet is an evil practice that was followed in China. When the kids are 2 years old, they will tie their feet and they will bind it so that it doesn't grow. All right? It is a very, very painful process. It will eventually break the bones and it will grow again, but they will limit the growing of the feet. So if you see this is an adult feet, but look at the size of the feet, because from the very young age of 2 years, they would have bound that feet and they will not allow it to grow. Just because the Chinese men liked women with small feet. All right, this was a very, very staunchly followed practice in China, and which eventually deformed the legs of the feet of women, and some became crippled, some were not even able to walk. This is a very, very painful process that the children will go through. All right, so the Mandarin said, now you have to go house by house, free the girls from this practice. And it's your responsibility, because you're a lady, you would go and do it. But Gladys said, at one condition, I will do this. So the Mandarin asked, what is it? If you allow me to preach the gospel and share the love of Jesus, I will go ahead and do it. So the Mandarin didn't have much of a choice. Said, okay, go ahead and do this. So this was an opportunity for her to share the gospel. Imagine if you get an opportunity with a government approval, what will you do? So she went house by house, preaching the gospel to the little children. Eventually the stories moved to the parents and lives were changed. Hearing the stories of the Bible and the love of Christ, they neglected all the evil practice that Chinese would follow. The old traditions all were neglected, and they followed Jesus. And she did this village after village, up to North China, she did this. Okay, that was a transformation she could bring in China. So things went on well for 2 years, and suddenly there was another invite from the same Mandarin, and he said, do you believe in your Lord? She said, of course, yes. Now, if that is the case, there is a crisis in our prison where one man caught hold of an axe and he's on a killing spree. Now you go and neutralize the situation. So Gladys couldn't make any sense of the statement, because she's a lady and you are sending me into a prison. with violent men. The mandarin just said, "Do you believe in your Lord? You go and neutralize the situation." So she prayed and she went. She was let inside the prison, locked the door, and she was inside into a terrific scene. People's head was beheaded, there was blood everywhere, there was dead bodies everywhere, and she was standing in the middle. And the guy with the axe saw her, and he was just furiously coming towards her with the axe. Don't know what happened. She didn't know what to do. She just prayed and shouted at the man, said, "Give me that axe." God alone knows what happened to that man. She came and gave the axe to her, and she neutralized the situation. So this was the beginning of prison transformation and a reformation. So from that time onwards, she was allowed into the prison, and she started preaching the love of Christ and started teaching skills to these prisoners, giving them hope. This is a photo of she preaching the Bible story to the convicts of this Shengtu place. What a transformation. All right. From this day on, the Chinese called her with a different name, which was close enough to Aylward. They called her I Veda. Okay, I Veda. I Veda means I is for love and grace. Way means great and honorable, and they means virtue. So they called her the virtuous one. This was a title given by the Chinese people for Gladys Aylward. From that day onwards, many people respected her, honored her for what she has done, and she continued her service. But she was never married till this time, and she always prayed that she wanted to get married. She was looking for a person in her life so that she can share her life, her ministry, a person who loves Jesus just like herself. But that man never came into her life. So one day she went to the marketplace. She was about to buy a few things. She saw a small girl, body full of blisters. She saw and had compassion, but she had a shock of her life. One lady was ready to sell her for some money. She said, "I don't have any money." The lady said, "Whatever money you have, give. I will give this child to you." She put her hands into the pocket. She pulled out 9 pence and gave that money to her and restored this child and took her home and took care of her. She named her 9 pence because she bought that child with 9 pence. Things were going fine between both of them. She started caring for this child. One day, 9 pence went out and brought her another boy. And this 9 pence named that boy as Less. The meaning of less is, she went and told Ayurveda, "Can we both eat less?" She said. Why? If we eat less, we can feed this boy and he can live with us. So that's why that boy's name is Less. So there is 9 pence, there is less, and that's how they started eating less. And they started living together, and Ayurveda started working very hard to manage these children. Soon she was managing 19 children in that inn, serving these orphans. And they all came, and God established a beautiful family for her. She may not have got married, but God established this beautiful family, and she has these children under her care. Life was going so smooth, and things were so beautiful, and everybody respected. She became a kind of a citizen of that place, and their people became her people. One day, the situation changed. There was war between Chinese and the Japanese. So the Japanese flights would cross over Yangtze. All these people will go look at the flights because they haven't seen them. But the sad thing is the flight would drop all the bombs. So the many died, and many children were orphaned in the same day. So soon her inn was hosting 200 children. And she has to work hard to feed these children. Okay, all for the sake of Christ. Things were going bad and bad. And one day, the invite came from the Mandarin saying there's an official meeting. We need you there. This is the first time, forget about a woman, a foreigner was invited for the official meeting of the Mandarin, and she has to go. She went there. The Mandarin said, "We have seen you serve our people so faithfully, and we have seen your God, his hand upon you, how he saved you in many situations. By this day, I believe in your God, and I will trust and worship your Lord," he said. But all these wonderful things he told, but he said, "We are in a very bad situation. The Japanese are pressing, and they will come to Yangchang very soon. So we request you to leave this place." She was heartbroken because that was her place for the past so many years. She was there, and she prayed to God and said what to do. She's got 200 children under her care, and she's asked to leave. Where will she go? So the only choice she was given is she had to go to, by the way, this is the 19 children, some of them when she was there. And this is the group of nearly 100 people. No? These are some of the kids. And this is Ayurveda, who's there along with the children. So this is the picture that was taken before they left Yangchen, and they had to take a deadliest trek. So since there were 200 kids, the first 100 kids were sent with some teenagers to help and an old cook named Yang. So the first batch went in train, and so she said, if you reach safely and come back, we can take the next batch of children. So they went, but they never came back. There is no news. So Ayurveda thought maybe they died, or they got lost, or they got arrested. She has no news. The time has come. She alone had to take these 100 kids to a place called Xi'an, and that looks like this. This is a place that they need to go, and they have to cross these mountain ranges, and they have to go here. So they started going. I think kids ministry people will understand. Managing 10 kids is a huge challenge. Now she's alone managing kids, 100 kids, aged between 4 to 8 years. They have to cross the entire mountain range and reach this place called Xi'an. That is the only safe harbor for them. So they started going with great difficulty, with less food. They move on. And they come and get stuck in a place called Yellow River. And by this time, she got caught with some of the Japanese. They hit her very badly. She was affected and injured by the bombings. With all this pain, she took the children because in her mind, the only thing that she has to do is to save these children. So she walked and walked and walked and finally reached this Yellow River. And it was quite a huge river and cannot be crossed without help. And there are no boats because the fear of bombing, all the boats fled from there. She was standing in front of the river with 100 children. And that is the situation. At this point of time, the first time she cried out, "Lord, it's too difficult for me. I can't take this any further." And one small child came and said, "Ayurveda, this is similar to the story what we read in the Bible. You remember Moses and Red Sea?" Frustrated as she is, she said, "I am no Moses and this is no Red Sea. Go back." That's what she said. But the child said, "But the God is the same. It's the same God there. It's the same God here." And she was strengthened and she was edified. She started praying. She prayed for two things. Lord, protect the skies. No more planes here, no more bombing. Save these children. Second prayer is send somebody so that we may be able to cross this river. Save these children. You know how many days they stayed like this? 4 days without food. children crying out of hunger, thirst. They're not able to sleep, cold weather. And you can understand children between 4 to 8 years old. And this is a situation all alone she's managing. After 4 days, it was a miracle. God saved, protected the skies, no bombing. Some friendly Chinese soldiers had come and they helped her to cross the river and board another train. So, with that train, they moved on. And then, at one point of time, similar story, because the war zones, the train stopped and they are asked to off board the train and walk. So, again, with the little food they had, they managed and walked. Finally, after walking for many days, they went to a place, and there is a village and there's a gate. So she went and knocked the door and said, "Please open the door, you have refugees." The response came from that city, said, "We are full. Please move away from here." She was utterly disappointed and she moved on. With the little strength she had, by now she was exhausted. She had injuries that she can never recover from there, and she had all the pain. She walked another 5 days with these children to the next city. And there she knocked the door and said, "Please open the door, we have refugees." The response came like this: "Welcome to Fufang, please come inside." This is the only thing she heard, and she fainted and fell down. And those people took her to the hospital. It was almost a month for her to recover. She was diagnosed with typhoid, typhus fever, very bad injuries in her head, and other injuries because of the bombing. She was there. I don't know how she survived for 1 month in the hospital. By the time all these children were settled in different orphanages, they were saved, and she settled them there. But out of those 100, she legally adopted 5 children under her care. And she started, working there, settling stuff. And by this time, her name spread like wildfire, that there was one small missionary lady who saved 100 children all alone. This was the news everywhere. So she became quite famous. And one missionary came from London, and she went to Gladys. She said, "Gladys, do you know a person named Ayveda? A small lady, it seems, she saved 100 people." So Gladys responded, "I know her. I am she," she said. And after that, the missionary and her, both of the ladies had a lot of conversation. And the missionary understood that she's been here for more than a decade, but she never went back to London. So they managed to get her a ticket with a lot of help from multiple people, get back a ticket. So she traveled back to London. And there she met her aged old parents, and she had a grand welcome. And the story about Gladys Aylward spread across London. All right? This is the same Gladys who was rejected by China Inland Mission, saying, "You're not qualified for a missionary." Many churches in London invited her to speak. And that's how you see this. This is the picture before she left China. And this is where she's been called to preach in multiple churches in London, to share her testimony about God's grace and His hand in her life. All right, so, but whatever said and done, during this time, the Communist Party in China came into power, and they completely wiped out all these missionaries out of the country, and the door is closed for all foreigners. Now she can't get back, but she's missing her children. What do we do? So she wanted to go back, but she couldn't. So with this lot of pain, she managed to go to Hong Kong. And there she met the first initial 100 children who was there. Praise God, they were all alive, they were settled there, and she praised God for their lives. And from there she moved to Taipei, that is in Taiwan. There again, since she became very famous, a lot of funds came in. Many people gave her funds, and all the funds she received, she opened Gladys Aylward Orphanage. and she again received a lot of children, and God sent a lot of children to her, and this is the children that she took care of, and now she is 68 years old. And by this time, she became a mother for many, and she transformed the lives of many by the work she has done, and she made a great impact for the people of Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, and wherever she went. And this is her story. By 1970, she passed away, and that is her son, Clifford Lewis. He became a doctor, and that is a picture of Gladys and the same person. And he said, "This is my mother, and I buried her." And that's a testimony given by that orphan whom she took and adopted and helped and cared for her. After doing all of this, she said, this is what she spoke when somebody asked, "I wasn't God's first choice for what I have done in China. I don't know who it was. It must have been a man, a well-educated man. I don't know what happened. Perhaps he died. Perhaps he wasn't willing. And God looked down and saw Gladys Aylward. And God said, well, she's willing." That's the testimony she gave to people when they asked, "What you have done?" All right? Such a humble response. She still feels that she's not qualified. It's just because I was willing, God was able to take it. All right? So that's the story of this person, Gladys Aylward. I think these are the lessons that we should take from this story. For her, God is her topmost priority. I think she didn't have anything else in her life other than God. Be it marriage, be it money, be it career, be it her interest, nothing was there. It was just Jesus, and she just wanted to preach the gospel to as many people as possible. And because of this, she was able to bring transformation of lives to multiple people. Maybe lakhs of people would have heard a story, and lives would have been changed. A single lady with no support, just rely on God, and she was able to achieve so much. Obedience to God may lead through pain. I think she had enough pain for a lady to handle. I don't think so even a man could handle so much of pain. But she endured all of this for the sake of Christ. But nothing is without purpose. There's always a purpose. In your faith, you will have trials, you will have temptations, you will have hardships, you will have struggles, persecutions. But everything God allows because there is a purpose that God has for your life, and may it be fulfilled. Question is, how far will you go for Christ? She's gone too far with what she had, the little strength. Tiny she is, but with a great God, she was able to take so much, and she moved on and made a difference in many people's life. Now, question is, how far will you go for the sake of Christ? And finally, faith doesn't remove hardships. I think Jesus was very clear on this. He said, if you want to follow me, you'll have to carry my cross. It will never be a bed of roses. Christian life is going to be difficult. Walk with Christ is going to be even more harder, because the world is different, Jesus is different. The kingdom of God is different, the kingdom of world is different. And you will face all of this. But she says, faith doesn't remove hardship, it gives strength to endure it. That's the only difference that we have in Christ. You will never escape hardships, but God will give you the power and the strength to overcome everything. All right? That is what she proved through her life. And what a story. I was inspired reading this book and seeing that video. And I said, what are we doing? how far we can go for Christ, right? So this is the story of a small woman who had a great God. Amen. God bless.